Hello. Um, I don't really know exactly how to begin what I want to talk about today. I don't. I just wanted to talk about a little bit of something I learned in philosophy um a while ago and I think is pretty interesting and yeah, so I thought I'd share it. Um and it's about decision theory and specifically around Newcomb's paradox, which is this thought experiment that I will walk you through right now. And I'll try my best to be as clear as possible, even though I definitely do struggle with that a lot, but I will try. Um, so imagine you are presented with two boxes by this person we'll call the predictor. We call this person the predictor because in your life they have made, um, I guess, they have always accurately assumed or predicted whatever decision you would make. Always, always, always. They've always known what kind of decision you would make, and they've always guessed accurately up until this point in your life, okay? They have like a 99.99999% accuracy in what decision you would make. Keep that in mind, okay? And they put in front of you two boxes, box A and box B. There is $1,000 in box A, and box B might or might not have $1,000,000 in there. The predictor, if they predict that you will open box B alone, it'll have $1,000,000. If they predict that you'll open box A and B, that you open both boxes, then there will not be $1,000,000 in there. And that's basically just um that's basically it. That's basically what the paradox is. So now the question is, how do you decide? Do you open both or do you open just one? And personally, I would open just box B because I mean box B has $1,000,000. Like if I choose to open box B alone, that means that the predictor would probably think I'll open box B alone. And then it'll have $1,000,000. And what's $1,000,000 compared to $1,000? Because the argument to open both boxes is that whether the predictor has predicted that you have or have not, like whether the predictor thinks you'll open one or two boxes, this is a isolated, like, what do I mean? I mean that there cannot be any changes made to the boxes. So after the predictor has made the decision and then you get to choose, that nothing can happen that will change the outcome of what's in those two boxes. So the logic is to open both boxes. But where you get tripped up, where it really becomes a paradox, is that, well, if you open both boxes, then you've opened both boxes, and the predictor, well, them being someone who has accurately predicted what you would do in your life up until this point, they would think, well, okay, I know exactly what they're doing, and they're gonna open both boxes. So there won't be $1,000,000 in box B. There are a bunch of versions of this paradox. The one I'm working with is this one, but I feel like we could also imagine it in a way that's like, well, what if box A had $100,000 instead, and then box B had $1,000,000? Because $100,000 is not a small amount of money, you know. It is definitely not. But like, you know what I mean? Like, you'd be fine losing $1,000 if you're gaining $1,000,000, but 100,000 is a lot of money. Or maybe you could think of it as 500,000 or something like that, you know? Or I don't really know. Anything that you could put in those two boxes. The logic is, well, since nothing can be changed, you should open both. But if the predictor thinks you'll open both because you will, because that's what you choose, then why would you open both? You know what I mean? The predictor will always think in the way that you will think. I'm sorry, I don't feel like this is, um, I don't feel like this is a great way to explain it. But let's just go into the decision theories we're using to think of this paradox. So we have evidentiary decision theory, or evidential, I think, decision theory, which is basically just when you are presented with something, like with a set of possible actions, you have to choose the one with the greatest expected utility. How my professor, because this is something I took in a philosophy class, how my professor explained it to us was it should be what would be like the best news to receive if heard by a loved one, for example. So, according to EDT, we should choose to one box, because if we choose to one box, then we'll definitely get $1,000,000, because the predictor, well, they would have predicted that you would have opened $1,000,000. But we have causal decision theory, which would lean more towards two boxing, because CDT tells us that when we're presented with a set of possible actions, we have to choose the one that will cause the best outcome. So if I choose two boxes, like, regardless, the best outcome would be $1,000,000 and $1,000. Like, if you open both boxes, and the predictor had assumed that you would open one box, because maybe up until this moment in your life, everything you've done is looking like you're inclined to one box, but in this moment you thought the rational thing to do was to two box. I don't know. Whether you follow evidential or causal is a whole different story, but I think it's interesting the way we define these two theories and how we separate them from each other to try and pick the best outcome, when it just felt to me that the decision was already made. And I found it, I don't know, I found it a little, what's the word? Pointless. I found it a little pointless because it just felt like, well, there's nothing I could really do. The predictor has already made that decision for me. And I feel like in life, you really just feel that way a lot, that the decision has already been made for you, and there's this idea between free will and fate. And I don't know, it's a paradox, you know, it's contradictory by design, it's just how it's meant to be. But what can we really do here that would change anything? I feel like this is definitely the pessimistic approach, to just say, well, you don't really have any real effect on what happens. But I feel like it's the truth. You really don't have any effect on what's going to happen. I mean, life has already been picked out for you, and there's nothing you could do. There's this... I compared this, personally, to Hobson's choice, which just means that you have an appearance of choice, but there is really no real alternative. You know, you can choose to one box or two box, sure, but it's not like it's gonna change its outcome, because there's no real alternative. You're not really changing anything, because the predictor would have assumed you would have one box or two boxed. I feel like these trying to figure out a technique or following a different decision theory is kind of like you're trying to outsmart the outcome or fate or whatever, but you can't really, because no matter what you do, the predictor will always think that, you know, this is probably the choice they're gonna make. I don't know. It's, you know, I'm not saying that there's no resolution to this. Quite the opposite, actually. I mean, there have been many, many, many different variations where people have come to consensuses, and it's whether or not you follow it. But I think I think it says a lot how in philosophy we try to talk about, well, what's the best way to decide something? What's the best way to come to a decision? Which at the end of the day, this is what this is all about. Trying to find the best way to make an informed decision. And sometimes it really feels like, well, there really is no way, and we don't really have any actual choice in the matter, and everything just happens. And I don't know, I mean, you're asked to choose between these two boxes, but the decision's already been made. Nothing you do will make a difference, and therefore you don't really have a choice, do you? It's not real. You think it is, but it's not. And it comes back to this debate that's been going on for many, 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 many years about free will and fate. And sometimes it feels like fate is always winning, and I feel like that's such an overwhelming feeling, because when you feel so helpless in your life, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Because in religion, which I don't know why I'm deviating to this, but here we are. In religion, you're told that, yes, God has a plan and all this and that, but that doesn't mean that you're not supposed to do anything. That doesn't mean that you're not supposed to try, because, well, yes, God may have a plan. That plan will not just happen to you, And we have to keep working at it, and we have to keep trying for it. But the thing is, it's like, how much of our lives have we really decided for ourselves? How much of our lives have been decisions and deviations from real decisions, and how much of it is planned? I think that's what's so scary about thinking like, well, you don't really have a choice in the matter, and you don't really have this or that. It's that you just don't know if it's true, you don't know if any of this really adds up to anything real. And I'm thinking like, well, I'm here, I'm an adult, and I think I think I'm the summation of all the decisions I've made in my life, but how many of them have really been my decisions if it's all part of God's plan and it's all part of this bigger thing? And I think a lot of people like to say that things are part of God's plan because it's like reassuring, because there's an inherent belief in God's plan that it's meant to work out, and it's going to, and that you'll get this happily ever after. But I don't think we ever think of like, well, is God's plan something negative? Like, not everyone gets to live a wonderful, wonderful life, not everyone gets to be blessed. And sometimes I just think, well, if I have no choice, if everything has already been predetermined, if I'm living through Hobson's choice every minute, every day of my life, then what am I supposed to do with that information, I don't know, because we keep going and we keep doing, and I keep going and I keep doing, but I don't know how to go from here, because every time I think about it, I just feel small and claustrophobic, but I keep going because, well, what's the alternative? Purposefully try to deviate, but then again, deviate from God's plan, but then again, maybe that was God's plan. You see what I mean? It's just, it's a paradox. It's something you just if it's something you believe in, this plan for you doesn't have to be gods or whatever. You can think of it as just fate, the universe's plan for you. Then in no way could you deviate from it because you think, well, everything I do is part of that plan no matter what. Unless, I mean, I guess there is no unless. I don't know. Okay, I think I definitely deviated from what I was originally talking about, and I've been doing that a lot lately, and I apologize. But I don't know. I don't know. I think decision theory is really interesting. I think Newcomb's paradox is really interesting, and I think it's definitely worth looking into. And yeah, thank you for listening. And I don't know, I'm gonna go now. Okay, thank you. Bye.